Ros, what's holding up this deal being finalised?
Well, the US would say it's the EU holding things up. This deal that was signed almost a year ago, and the EU can't quite get itself over the line. Of course, under this deal, the EU agreed to eliminate levies on American industrial goods in return for a tariff ceiling of around 15% on most European goods. But there's been a bunch of issues that have come into this. One is simply that European officials kind of wanted to slow down and wait to see how did the landscape change after the US Supreme Court struck down Donald Trump's use of emergency powers on trade. There's been periodic tensions over Greenland as well. Donald Trump threatening to annex or trying to buy Greenland, and officials saying, well, we can't do this trade deal while that is going on. And also EU officials would say the US has not fulfilled its end of the bargain. It's not actually managed all the elements of the deal it said it would. For example, it's extended the list of goods that are subject to steel and aluminium tariffs, for example. And so there's a bit of accusations on both sides, but the feeling, as you said, we're coming to a deadline here that Donald Trump has now extended and set for July 4th. So we do need to see some kind of action by then.
Yeah, so with all this finger-pointing, Ros, what's the risk that we get back into a period of fresh trade tensions?
Well, it's a bit hard to know. There is a risk of that. Obviously, Donald Trump does like to threaten, and sometimes he retreats again. But he might just decide he's tired of it and he wants to have these tariffs. And he says he's going to raise auto tariffs to 25% from 15%, which would be a really serious issue for European car makers and whatever sliver of competitive advantage they may still have globally in their sector. And so it's a real question about that. Does he decide that he's tired and go ahead? And if he does, European officials will say, well, we have to do something in turn. So do we go back into the deep freeze, essentially, on trade, a series of retaliatory actions against each other, complicated by the fact there are bilateral tensions between Europe and the US, particularly the US and Germany over Germany's stance on the war in Iran? Does that all come in as a factor? And underpinning all of this is, even if we get to a deal, and Europe does say it wants to try and get this done by July 4, by the way, they are intending to try and get there, is that underpinning all of this is the reality is that the relationship is shifting, and neither side really sees the other anymore as a reliable partner, and that's why getting this deal done is so hard.